Good morning and welcome to University of Toronto International Summer Academy podcast series. My name is Jelena and I'm your host. This morning in the studio, I have students from Global Citizenship program, and they're doing research on food insecurity in Kenya. So before we dive into their research, let's go around the room and just introduce ourselves first.
こんにちは、中本太一です。Hi everyone, my name is Taichi and I'm from Japan.
こんにちは、北島ひかるです。Hi, I'm Hikaru, I'm from Japan.
Namaste, मेरा नाम Aarna है और मैं Toronto से हूँ. Hi, I'm Aarna, I'm from Toronto.
Habari, kwa majina naitwa Alyssa, nimetoka nchi ya Kenya. Hi, I'm Alyssa, I'm from Kenya.
Welcome everyone and good morning. So this morning, as I mentioned, we are traveling to Kenya, and you are doing research on food insecurity. So I would like us to start off by talking about what is the current situation in Kenya, and if you can also share the reason why you decided to focus your research on this country.
Today we're talking about an issue that's urgent, heartbreaking, and deeply connected to many global challenges: food insecurity. Food insecurity doesn't mean being hungry for one day. It means not knowing where your next meal will come from, eating too little, or eating food that isn't healthy. It can last for weeks, months, or even years. And we're focusing specifically on Kenya, a country where millions of children go to bed hungry every night. We often think of hunger as not just having enough to eat. But in Kenya, hunger means so much more. It means missing school, being too weak to play or learn, and sometimes even missing a childhood altogether. So what's happening right now in Kenya? Currently, more than 2 million children in Kenya face food insecurity every single day. That means they don't have reliable access to nutritious meals. In fact, over 53% of children in the country are considered multidimensionally poor, which indicates not just lack of food, but also limited access to clean water, healthcare, education, and safe living conditions. 4.1% of the children die before their 5th birthday. In regions like Turkana, Garissa, and Marsabit, ongoing droughts, rising food prices, and poverty have made things even worse. These are areas where it may not rain for months, sometimes even years, and families rely on farming or livestock to survive. When crops fail or animals die, there's simply nothing left to eat. Because of this, children are suffering most. Around 26% of children under 5 in Kenya are stunted, which means their growth and brain development are permanently affected due to chronic malnutrition. In addition, 11% of children are underweight. And in many areas, children are skipping schools to search for food or help support their families. Alyssa will now be talking about why we chose children in Kenya.
Our group chose to focus on Kenya with specific emphasis on children the age 0 to 10 because this age group is the most vulnerable when it comes to long-term effects of malnutrition. And in Kenya, young children suffer from food insecurity due to many reasons like poverty, drought, and even unequal access to resources, which impacts their physical and mental development. By addressing hunger in an early childhood, we aim to highlight the urgent need for sustainable solutions that can improve child's health, growth, and future opportunities to help break the cycle of poverty and hunger from a young age from the start.
Thank you. Now, Aarna, you already touched upon briefly about some of the leading causes of the food insecurity, but if you could just elaborate a little bit more of what is contributing to the food insecurity in Kenya.
Okay, so we mainly focus on 4 factors: the environmental, political, social, and historical. And I'll be talking about the environmental and the political factor. So first, what environmental factors are causing hunger? According to the International Federation of Red Crescent of Societies, IFRC, drought is one of the major reasons. Kenya regularly experiences long droughts in both north and south regions. and crop failures and livestock dies, which leads families to lose food and having a low income. Also, malnutrition increases kids missing meals or eat less nutritious food. In addition, from 2020 to 2023, East Africa experienced the worst drought since the 1980s. In this region, 80% of food production depends on small-scale farmers. Due to 3 consecutive years of below-average rainfall, many families have lost their cattle, crops, and livelihoods. This made 7 million children under the age of 5 malnourished and urgently need nutrition assistance. Next, I'll be talking about the political factor. The government's slow response to drought and limited investment in sustainable food systems has deepened this crisis. In emergency, usually young children are the first ones to suffer from hunger-related diseases, and even they might die. According to Global Hunger Index, as Aarna mentioned previously, 4.1% of children die before their 5th birthday. This sounds pretty low, but it's actually a huge number since the birth rate in Kenya is generally high compared to other countries around the world. Now that I have finished talking about the environmental and political factor, Hikaru is going to talk about the historical and social factor.
So, according to one of the articles that was written in 2015, Kenya's food insecurity was fairly stable in the pre-colonial period. However, due to the British colonization, the condition in Kenya became worse. This is because British people brought new colonial policies to Kenya, such as labor conscription and colonial taxes. Labor conscription is the obligation of citizens to perform mandatory labor for the government. These led to famine and food shortage. Also, in 1819, there was an epidemic of cattle disease, and this led to spread of hunger. In addition, in Kenya, poverty and inequality are the social cause of food insecurity. Based on the research of the World Food Programme, 1/3 of Kenyans live below the poverty line, and refugees in Kenya who are insecure food rise 60% every 5 years because of less access to jobs and services. They are still suffering from food insecurity due to these causes.
Thank you. So there's multiple causes that are contributing to this food insecurity. Now, let's dive into some of the effects of these causes, and if you can also tell us which demographic is affected the most.
So first off, in Kenya, chronic malnutrition remains a serious issue for children under the age of 5. And according to UNICEF, over a quarter, nearly 2 million are stunned, meaning they are significantly shorter than average for their age due to long-term undernutrition. In counties like Kitui and West Pokot, stunting rates reach up to 46%, but the effects go far beyond height. Stunting weakens the immune system, slows mental and physical development, and increases the risk of illness and even death. Research from West Kenya shows that a strong link between poor maternal healthcare and child malnutrition. Children whose mothers miss antenatal care are nearly 8 times more likely to be malnourished. Other factors like low birth weight, delayed breastfeeding, and low paternal education also play a role. In informal urban settlements, the cycle of poor sanitation, frequent infections, and inadequate diet worsens the problem. National surveys and Cambridge studies show that the smaller birth size doubles stunting risks. And illnesses like diarrhea increases the chances of being underweight. Encouragingly, every additional month of breastfeeding can reduce the stunting rate by 14%. However, breastfeeding rates and maternal education remain uneven across the country.
And the mothers are also malnourished
Yeah.
as well.
So The long term consequences are also really serious. Stunned children often face poor school performance, more frequent illnesses, and lower earning potentials as adults. According to study from the UN, the first 1,000 days from pregnancy to the age of 2 are crucial for intervention. That's why programs focused on parental care, maternal education, and clean water, feeding supports, and access to nutritious food are essential. UNICEF data from 2022 shows nearly 11% of children under the age of 5 were underweight and 4% were severely wasted. Clearly, the signs are urgent and show that we need urgent action.
Alyssa mentioned some good points, and I'm going to continue to talk about some more effects. The effects of food insecurity in Kenya go far beyond hunger. They shape every part of a child's life, from health to education to their future. One of the biggest impacts is on a child's development. Without enough nutritious food, children struggle to grow properly. They become physically weak, and their ability to think, focus, and learn slows down. This makes it much harder for them to succeed in school, or even attend it at all. That leads to the second major effect, education loss. When families are desperate for food, children often miss school to help at home or look for food. Hunger also makes it harder to concentrate, so even those who do end up attending school may fall behind. Another serious effect is child labor and early marriage. In households that don't have enough to eat, kids are often sent to work, and girls may be married off early as a way to reduce the number of mouths to feed. These choices take away their chances at a full childhood and a better future. There's also the emotional side. Hunger causes stress and anxiety, especially for children who see their families struggling or feel pressure to help. Going to sleep hungry or watching siblings go without food can be traumatic. And lastly, hunger affects health. Kids without proper nutrition get sick more easily and take longer to recover. They're more likely to miss school, fall behind, and stay stuck in the cycle of poverty. So when we talk about food insecurity, we're not just talking about empty stomachs, we're talking about lost potential, interrupted education, and futures that are being shaped by hunger. Beyond the physical and educational impacts, food insecurity in Kenya also leads to deeper, long-term consequences. Many children lose their childhoods entirely, taking on adult responsibilities like caring for siblings or working instead of playing, learning, or developing emotionally. Girls are often hit the hardest as they're more likely to be pulled from school, skip meals, or be forced into early marriage. Hunger also places a huge strain on Kenya's already limited healthcare system. Since undernourished children are more vulnerable to illness and harder to treat, in some areas, competition for food and resources even causes conflict between communities. And perhaps most devastating of all, food insecurity doesn't just affect one generation. When malnourished girls grow up to become mothers, their children are often more likely to face the same hunger, creating a cycle that repeats itself. Hikaru will next be talking about who is affected the most.
People who are affected by these issues the most are people who live in rural areas, especially a family headed by women. In Kenya, as I mentioned previously, poverty is one of the major issues that has been discussed over years. So those women struggle financially. They are required to purchase not only their needs but also their family members. They cannot afford even their meals and their children's. As they keep living in this condition, these children weaken their immune system due to lack of nutrients, and they tend to become skinnier and chronic malnutrition. Also, because of a weak immune system, they are more likely to be prone to disease, which might take a long time to be treated completely. They require higher healthcare costs to treat too, and there's a high risk of getting 2 or more diseases at the same time, and their body would be in danger and might end up dying. And next, Taichi is going to talk about who has least effect by this issue.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about who's least affected by hunger and food insecurity. So, for example, families living in big cities like Nairobi or Mombasa, especially those with stable jobs, are usually less affected by hunger. This is because middle and upper class households often have enough income to buy food, even when prices of food goes up. In addition, large commercial farms and agribusiness usually have access to irrigation and markets, so they're more food secure. To sum up, people with money, power, or access to resources are much better protected from hunger in Kenya. I would also like to mention that research done by World Bank mentions that Kenya has significant issues with their income inequality. While economic growth has reduced some of the poverty rates and grew throughout the year, there's a huge gap between the rich and poor people. According to Oxfam International, the richest 10% earn, on average, 23 times more than the poorest 10% earns. This shows the huge difference between the rich and poor people in terms of their income. In 2024, Kenya's GDP was 131.67 billion US dollars. This is highly moderate and showing growth throughout the year. However, study done by Global Hunger Index states that around 38.6% of the population lives below the national poverty line, and this is still nearly half of the population in Kenya. And lots of people are still facing serious situations of hunger and still considered as one of the world's problems.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing all of that very important information. Now, we're running out of time, but before we wrap up, I would like you to share a few of the solutions that you came across through your research about how is whether or not the government or grassroots and community-based solutions addressing this issue. I know that you're going to dive deeper into this during your presentations next week, but if you can just tell us how is this being addressed currently?
So, first of all, there's a new national plan called Food Transformation Strategy running through 2033, and it pushed for agroecological farming, so things like organic fertilizer, pest controls without chemicals, and crops like sorghum that thrive throughout tough climate. And it's about farming smart, and more sustainably. And on the nutrition side, one of the most powerful programs out there is the niche, which is the nutrition improvements through cash and health education. It's a partnership between UNICEF and the Kenyan government that supports vulnerable mothers and their young children during the first 1,000 days of life. And families get like small monthly cash transfer, but just as important, moms receive health education and nutrition support. They join peer groups, learn about breastfeeding, hygiene, and how to cook healthy meals on a tight budget. So far, Niche has reached over 3,000 households, and it's showing real results in reducing child malnutrition and improving care. It's a great example of how target support and even small amounts can make a huge difference in breaking the cycle of hunger and poor health from the very start. So adding on to what I just said, Hikaru will give solutions as
I will explain two solutions. One has been addressed by World Food Program, and another one is an action plan that we can implement from now on. First of all, WFP has been providing unconditional food and nutrition assistance for food insecure communities to fill the food gaps between high and low income classes. How they address it is by creating climate resilient assets for increasing production and diversifying livelihoods. Also, it supports farmers to access markets and more advanced technology to develop their agriculture. Second of all, I suggest two things which we can start today. Firstly, we should buy Kenyan agricultural products that are imported to other countries to support Kenyan farmers directly. The profits from these products can be used for purchasing new machines to grow crops more effectively. Secondly, people who have advanced agricultural knowledge that Kenyan farmers may not know should support them by contacting and providing knowledge.
thank you so much for joining me this morning and sharing your research so far. I know we're halfway there. Thank you so much and have the rest of your day. Bye.
You've been listening to the ISA GCP podcast, a production by students in the Global Citizenship program of the International Summer Academy at New College, University of Toronto. If you're interested in being a student in this program, please visit us at internationalprograms.utoronto.ca.